Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. So we are going to be going live today, just me and Chase. But one thing before we get started, I did want to let everyone know. So if you're watching this, like it already happened, next Sunday, we are going to be doing a giveaway. Don't know what jersey yet. I think we're probably leaning towards doing a Joe Musgrove jersey giveaway, but we'll figure out the details before then. But you will have to be in the live stream, and we'll probably do it like in the middle of the live stream. But that will be next Sunday. I will also repeat this at the end, so anyone that joins later knows that. But we're excited to do it because we've been wanting to do some type of jersey giveaway, and that will be next week, the day after Christmas. So looking forward to doing that. But for today, I think we're mostly just going to be talking about the Padres, probably going over some NFL stuff. Chargers, they already played on Thursday, lost, unfortunately, for all you Charger fans out there. Me and Chase's Niners are playing today, in probably a really underrated huge game, because if the Niners win, they're in the playoffs. Like, they have to beat the Texans, and then they have 9 wins, and then they're kind of locked in. So it's actually a huge game for the Niners, even though it is a little bit weird just because it's not like the I don't know if you know this, Chase, but the Falcons are ranked dead last in DVOA. So like they're not a good team, but they're 6-7. So it's really weird how the Falcons season has gone. They haven't really beat anyone that good, but they've taken care of business against all the teams that they probably should take care of business against. But Chase, how are you feeling about the NFL? And then once we start getting some Padres questions, we'll go over those as well. But how are you feeling about the Niners today?
Dude, I'm feeling pretty confident about the Niners. Not too worried about the Falcons. I unfortunately started Matt Ryan in fantasy football when they played the Cowboys, and then learned my lesson about the Falcons either do all right or absolutely horrendous against good teams. So yeah, I learned that lesson. I don't expect them to really do anything. I think Cordero Patterson may be the only person that really does anything in this game, just because they can use him every play. Catches, he receives, he lines up as a wide receiver. Pitts might do something. I don't know. Matt Ryan's really hard to tell when he comes up against a somewhat good defense. Wasn't completely expecting them to get shut out by the Cowboys, but that happened. I don't think the Cowboys have a good defense, but I don't think it's over the top, like shut down. So I think the 49ers will come away with the win. Hopefully we see some of Wilson's speed come back, coming off that injury, still kind of looking a little slow. Hopefully he gets a bigger workload and just things happen.
All right, here we go. Okay, sorry. Yeah, no, and then one thing that I also wanted to bring up too, because we've talked a little bit about football in these live streams, but that's about it. Because there's a lockout, because there's not really any football stuff going. We're gonna be doing a couple segments and like non-live stream, like regular segments that we post on the Chargers, on the Niners. So we are excited to do some of that stuff. I know that's not why you guys are subscribed. Obviously, it's for Padres content, but both of our teams are potentially going to be in the playoff mix in the playoffs. So we are going to kind of follow the end of their season just because something we want to talk about. And to be honest, there's not a ton to talk about the Padres. We have like an episode coming out on the closer. We have some stuff coming out on the Padres post, like some trades, and we're going to be doing some like Preller grading on past trade deadlines, past seasons of some of these trades, and going through and like really analyzing, is AJ Preller a good GM when it comes to trading? Because obviously he has some home runs in the Tatis one, but then you have some ones that are a little bit, okay, I don't know if this one should have happened. The Austin Nola one, that one's looking a lot worse. The Fremil Reyes one, like there's a few trades there that are a little bit iffy. So we do want to talk about that as well. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to do probably like, I would say 10 to 11 segments on top 10 lists in the league. Because on Twitter, I don't know if you guys have been following, there's been quite a few accounts that have been putting out, oh, this is the top 10 shortstop list, or this is the top 10 right fielder list. The right fielder one was awful. Me and Chase were talking about that yesterday. Just horrible list. So we're going to do our own, and it'll be fun because, obviously if you guys think that one of our takes is just awful, then you guys can roast us on those. But I do think that our takes on our top 10 will be better than some of the stuff we've seen on Twitter because it has been bad. Who is it? Was it Kyle Tucker over Mookie Betts? That was the one we were talking about the other day. Like, all right, guys, come on. Let's stop the bias. I think that was from an Astros fan. But we're going to be talking about that. Going to be super excited about doing that. And maybe we'll do a top 10 for the whole league too. But we'll go through each position and do that. So there's going to be a few Padres on these lists. Obviously, second base, shortstop, and third, we will see our Padres up there pretty high. And for those spots, we will probably be pretty biased because you know how much we like Cronenworth, Machado, and Tatis. So we'll probably have them up a little bit high, but that's something that we're pretty excited to do. Some more general MLB stuff. So pumped up to do that. What's up, Ace? What's up, Gil? I see you guys talking in the chat. Earlier before we started, Gil brought up Oliver, is it Carderillo? I think is how you say it. He almost won the Triple Crown in the Mexican Winter League, and I believe he won the MVP for that league as well. Absolute monster there. Chase, do you know much about him? I don't know a ton about him. I did see like they signed him. You know, he had a ton of success recently, but any thoughts on him?
I like the signing. You know, anytime you can get like a young guy from either Mexico or any of the Latin countries, they usually pan out pretty well if they already were succeeding in their winter leagues. Because we've seen, you know, some of the higher end minor leaguers and everything go there. They kind of struggle a little bit, and they come back. You know, they gain something out of it. Him hitting 441, hitting 8 home runs, and having 46 RBIs, that's amazing. You know, it shows you can hit for power, shows you can hit for just plain average, which, you know, we can probably use a little bit more of. And having plus speed and an aggressive base runner, I think that's the Padres what they need. I mean, sure, he's not going to be up for probably, you say he's 18, 19. He won't be up for another probably 3 years, but hey, 3 years down the line, you know, you'll have Hassel in the outfield more than likely if nothing happens there. And then adding that guy, if he turns out to have the potential that he has, I think that's a really solid addition to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen them. It's kind of weird because there's not many moves being made. But that was when I saw. I was like, okay, I like that. And then Gil says he's very likely to start in A, maybe high A. That makes sense. Also, I see something here, and unfortunately, we don't have Isaac on, but I have been wanting to talk about this a lot. Ride or die with fourth down and Brandon Staley. Oh, that stuff has been frustrating me so much. I'm not even a Chargers fan, so like, there's not a lot of like I don't get very like emotional about that. If the Niners were doing that though, I'd be pulling my hair out. I'd be so annoyed. I think some of the calls and for me, if you're gonna go for it on fourth down, you can't just be like, oh well, the analytics say that if you go for it, you know it's good. You also have to account for the play calls that we've seen from the Chargers, and I think a lot of these decisions that have been made on fourth down are horrific. You look at this game, they left 9 points on the board. The one at the end of the half where they're in field goal range and it's 4th and 1, and they don't kick the field goal was so annoying. I don't know how all the Chargers fans feel about it. I know that Isaac was a little bit frustrated. We were talking about it, but like sometimes he's like, "Hey, I get behind it." I'm fine with being aggressive. I think that teams should go for 2 point, go for 2 after they score a lot more. But when you're looking at some of these situations, you're playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs can't stop the run, and you get the ball first drive, you return it 80 yards. You're at like the 20 or 25 or whatever it is. You have a couple big runs. You get the ball, was it like the 3 or the 5 on that drive? And then they throw the ball 4 consecutive times. You know what's coming. Like the Chargers offense is so predictable. I think a lot of it is that Joe Lombardi is a first-time play caller. The problem is we don't know how he's going to adapt in the year 2. But our 49ers, we've seen D'Amico Ryans, the defensive coordinator for the Niners, he struggled at times. When it goes in the third down situation, you look at it and you're like, okay, they're man up. You're man up. You have Norman on Chase. You're going to lose that. And then what do? They run a slant. They complete it to Chase, first down. And I've seen a lot of situations where it feels like D'Amico Ryans has been a little bit like lost in terms of a play caller just because he's a rookie play caller. Similar, I think, to what Joe Lombardi's doing in San Diego, where sometimes it's just they come out in whatever offense they have, whatever formation they're in, and you're like, oh, they're going to run the football here. Oh, they're going to pass the football here. And it's so predictable at times. It's really frustrating. But when you pair that with I think it is, Ace said he was absolutely reckless. I think so too. I think that some of those play calls, it's like, oh, let's just go for it. If you go up and you get up by 2 scores, okay, sure. Like if you look at the analytics, it says, oh, you want to go for it. But if you go up by 2 scores, it changes the complexion of the game and it changes the way that the game's played. You want to have Joey Bosa take over some of these football games, go up by 2 scores. That's how you get that going. So I'm big about going for it on fourth down and going for 2 and stuff and being aggressive. But early on in the game, you have to take the points in a lot of these situations. And if you're not taking the points and you're having some of these play calls that we've seen, now the Jared Cook one, like that's just, you messed up. But in a lot of these situations, the Joshua Kelly, why are you giving Joshua the Kelly the ball at the goal line? Give it to Eckler. You have other players. I do like targeting Mike Williams in the end zone, but you don't throw it to him 3 times in a row. Like, all right, let's figure something else out. It's not working. Like it just seems like they put themselves into a bad situation, and then it's like, what is this play call? It doesn't make any sense. I know that they did beat the Chiefs with it earlier this year. Remember how they beat the Chiefs though? They had, was it Guyton? I think it was Guyton that they threw it to on fourth down, and there was a PI that was really, really iffy. It easily could have been a no call and they would have lost that game. So yeah, you got the call that time, sure, but it feels inevitable that the Chargers season is going to end because they're going to go for it on fourth down and it's going to be an atrocious play call and they're going to lose the game because of it. So as a non-Charger fan, I feel bad for all the Charger fans out there because I think some of the time it's been like awful. I don't know how you feel about it, Chase, though. Are you in the same boat?
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I just think anytime you mention like Niners and reckless play calling, it was the 4th and goal with the Seahawks and Kittle wasn't on the field. I was just like, okay, why isn't our best player on the field? If you're gonna try to do anything on fourth and goal, if you're gonna run it, you need Kittle as a blocker, or even not. Kittle is a great option in the end zone. I mean, it's never a bad idea to throw it up to Kittle. He's a massive guy. He can jump. I mean, that.
Yeah. Also, I see Gil. Yeah, Joshua Kelly diving from the 3.5-yard line, face palm. The picture. Have you seen the picture, Chase, where he's like in the air and it's not even close?
So bad.
It's so bad, dude. It's like, what is this dude doing? For all you Charger fans, because me and Isaac were talking about this too. There are a lot of running backs in next year's class, so you are going to see a guy there with Eckler that can produce. Justin Jackson will probably become the third back in your guys' rotation. Eckler will definitely be the first, but you'll definitely be able to get another 2. And I think the backfield will look a lot better. Yeah, as a San Diego native, I'm now a non-Chargers fan, so wonder feeling not to care. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at this stuff and it's like, dude, what are we doing here? Like, what are these play calls? I do think that Brandon, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm out on Brandon Staley. I don't think that's the case, but it's the first year. Like, you're going to see growing pains. I think the Chargers are a year away anyways. If you're going into your third, you're on your quarterback's rookie deal, it's your 3rd year. That's a pretty solid spot to be in, to be trying to contend. And I think that's where they're going to be next year. So then they have, 3 years under that rookie deal where and obviously you can win the Super Bowl other years, but that's like your real target years to go and try to win a championship. So I don't know. I think they're still in a good spot, but man, it's like one of those things, like the Chargers are going to Charger, the Mets are going to Met, where you just see these epic collapses. It's like, what is going on? Like, why are you doing that? And so, yeah, Ace says he's disgusted by Brandon Staley. I get it, man. I get the frustration. I would be losing my mind if Kyle was calling. I mean, Kyle has had some bad fourth downs, like you mentioned, Chase. So we'll see how that plays out. But any questions from you guys? Football, Padres, whatever you guys want to talk about. I did want to talk about that Brandon Staley stuff, though, because I've been eager to. But what are we thinking? Or Chase, anything that you want to talk about?
I was gonna say, anyone in the fantasy playoffs for their leagues, or is that next week for y'all?
Are you in any playoffs, Chase?
I'm in your league's playoffs. Isaac's league, I need to win this week, and I think I have the lineup to win. I really hope so.
You're not. It's not playoffs, but you're playing to get into the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's basically playoffs.
And then in another league, I have to win, and then I think someone else has either 1 or 2 people have to lose. So that one's very slim, but yeah, I'm almost there.
Yeah, dude. I need this week I have 2 playoff games, but I should win them both. But then the next 2 weeks, oh my god, I'm gonna be stressed, man. I got I got a lot of money on the line in these games, and I'm basically riding with Tom Brady and playoff Lenny for the ship in most of these leagues. So, well, and Elijah Mitchell, but now he's hurt. So if Elijah Mitchell misses next Thursday, I'm in a serious bad spot. Like that could be so massive for me. But yeah, what about you guys? Any fantasy playoff implications this week or in the coming weeks? Also, Chase, anything Padres related you want to talk about? I don't really have that much. I know we're going to talk
No.
about the closer
So
soon.
I don't know if you guys saw or you saw it, Matt, but they were saying that they weren't even like the Players Association. They weren't gonna talk until like January. I think that's the last update I saw. Let me check. But I was like, they weren't going to talk until January. So
I was going to ask you guys. I was going to say like we should go to spring training, and then of course probably not going to be a spring training in February and March. Like it's probably going to take a while. So, okay, here's a good question. What do you think about
they
the
met
Padres?
Thursday, but that was to began to talk non-core economic issues. To talk about the core economic issues, they won't talk until January.
So this is to be like, look, we would like to be paid enough money to get food on the table and live in a rent for the minor leaguers. And the MLB's like, yeah, I don't know about that one. I think that you guys get quite enough. I will go back to the Matt Williams stuff, but is this lockout going to be a problem? Yeah, definitely. And I'm scared about it. It feels like the Padres are finally in a good spot to get some development from their coaches. They employ this good coaching staff. We're super pumped about Ruben Niebla. And I don't know. I think it's really frustrating because a lot of these guys like Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, Robert Hassel, like spring training was huge for them to potentially come up and get signed or not come up and get signed, but like come up to the bigs and like make those big steps this year. And it feels like they're going to have to take another step back. I think that's something that when a lot of people have talked about Mackenzie Gore, they've ignored a little bit. It's hard to develop if you're not with your coaching staff. And we saw like from when COVID started, when that happened, and then like to the next year, like for like maybe like 18 months, you saw a bunch of like Mackenzie Gore's struggles and issues start then when he wasn't with the coaching staff, when he didn't have the ability to go and adjust. And that's why we've been so big on like trying to get some more coaches and a lot, especially pitching coaches in, because like he should have a guy that's one-on-one with him. But they didn't even have like anyone for a while. So I think it's hurting a lot of these young players, not just for the Padres, but for the entire MLB. It's hard to develop players if you're not with them every day. And that's what's going to happen this year. And until this lockout's figured out, we're going to see a lot of these prospects, their timelines. Is Mackenzie Gore, I think, was 2022 was his ETA. It's likely to be 2023, depending on what happens with spring, because that might be another step back for him. And it's not his fault, but it's just the league. It's just where they're at. So I think it's a huge problem. I think it's really big for the minor leaguers. And like for a lot of these coaches, they're trying to mesh with these players early on. It might take a lot longer to do that, which is a little bit frustrating because we've been so pumped about, oh yeah, Ruben Niebla is going to come in here and he's going to really be able to improve Mackenzie Gore. I don't know if we're going to see that now. Like it's maybe like not that we're not going to see it, but it's going to take some more time to really be able to evaluate that, which is a little bit frustrating. And I think a lot of people's patience has already ran thin with Mackenzie Gore, but it's hard to not look at it and go, man, like this guy has kind of got screwed with the situation he's been in because how is he supposed to develop if he's not around coaches? If he's not able to, he's having this, command issue, but he can't fix it because he's not around people to help him out. So I think that it's really tough for the Padres.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you go into 2020, you don't have a spring training. You don't have all that time. You don't even have a minor league season. You get stuck at, what was it, the USD campus. You're playing against the same people. You're not really getting what could be meaningful reps against different competition. You're not getting, the full length of pitching at different stadiums, pitching against different people. And you have the same pitching coach necessarily probably telling you the same thing over and over again, and you can't make that adjustment just because of the environment that you're in. And then you go into the next season, and obviously there were struggles in spring training. There were some signs in spring training that, hey, you know what, he's going to work through this. And there were signs at the end of the season that he was going to work through it. And then the second half of, I believe, the Arizona Fall League, it fell apart again. And, it's kind of hard. You go look at Mackenzie Gore's situation and be like, yeah, this guy's a failed prospect when there's been underlying circumstances. And now this, if there's no spring training, I think he's getting some one-on-one time with Niebla in the offseason. But if there's no spring training now, you're losing out on, like, okay, is this guy going to be ready for the season? And we're not going to know that answer now. And, you're going to have to rely on the minor league numbers when he's not facing any sort of MLB competition like he would in spring training. So, it's an unfortunate situation for him. He might be one of the ones that called up in September if they decide to do September call-ups. We don't know. Like I said, the CBA talks said the core economic negotiations would wait until January. So that doesn't give them a lot of time to come to a compromise before spring training would start, because that normally starts right around the end of February for pitchers, and then, March is spring training.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. And I think the whole league needs to kind of reevaluate a lot of these prospects' timelines because of all these factors that are in play in terms of COVID, in terms of the lockout. And it's tough for a lot of these young guys. Also guys that are in the league, like Trent Grisham. Trent Grisham, we see him go and we see him struggle a little bit. I don't believe that the Padres had a coaching staff that was well equipped to help a player make adjustments in the middle of the season. Chase, I see your cat trying to join us. But I don't know. I definitely feel like that it's tough for those guys too, because when you're trying to make adjustments and you don't have the coaching staff employed, and then now we got it. Well, I'm sure that they looked at Trent Grisham, they looked at his tape, and they said, "Look what you were doing with your swing. You were doing this, that, and this. Look at your foot. Look at this. These little mechanical issues that are happening with him. Maybe it's also like mental issues. Like you're coming up here and you're taking this pitch. Why are you taking this pitch? And trying to fix those issues. It makes it a lot harder to do that now. So I think young players, minor leaguers, are in a really tough spot. I wonder if the league will kind of be in a different situation where these young players getting called up, it kind of slows it down for a couple of years, and we'll have to see. We'll have to look at this down the road. But let's get into Matt Williams. Now, Matt Williams was the Nationals coach, or the manager. I believe he was there when they made the playoffs in 2014. He got fired after 2015. But he's like a really, really well-known guy, really liked guy. I see that Jason said, I think, where is it? Someone said this. Oh, Gil said, love the Matt Williams signing. We'll have two managers, basically. I think that he's regarded really highly. Chase, do you have a ton on him? I just know that his past stint with the Nationals, not a ton outside of that. I know that he was a good player for a long time as well. Played in the bigs for many years. But what are your thoughts on Matt Williams?
I think it's a great signing. Like they said, it's basically like having two managers. And when you have two guys that, can somewhat different opinions, I think it's good for a team. I mean, not one guy is always going to be right. Having another guy that's also been a manager for a while, be a third base coach, they will be on the same page of like when to be aggressive running, when to do this, when to do that, and if they think something else can be done better, they have that experience to go up to the other manager and be like, we need to do things this way. I just think it's a great overall signing. We saw a couple of times where, what we were like, why would you send that guy going down? It was pretty bad last year. They played aggressive baseball, but sometimes, the third base coach sent them when they definitely shouldn't have been sent. I mean, I think there was a couple of times where they were out by like a good 10 feet. Like they weren't even sliding. They were just, okay, I give up. I mean, he's been around the league. He's been a player. He knows what he's doing. I trust it. I think it's a really good pickup.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I don't know, like, in terms of when he'll be sending players, how good he's going to be at that. Because, like, it's hard to – there definitely is a lot of things that you can, like, grade on a third base coach. But I feel like that's, like, the most prominent one from a spectator's point of view. Oh, look, he sent him in a horrible spot. Bobby Dickerson definitely did that a few times last year. Like you said, Chase, there would be times where the guy's, like, halfway down the line. You're like, why was he sent? They should have not been sent at all. We also see it, like, where no outs, and then guy would get sent, and you'd be like, what the heck? Like, why are they killing the inning? Like, why are they killing a rally? So hopefully none of that. Hopefully, maybe not safer necessarily, but just like not like spots where it was just really, really bad. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of all I have on him. I don't know a ton. I just know that he's had a lot of past success. It seemed like he was pretty well liked for the Nationals. That it just was like one of those things where they eventually moved on, but he had success. It wasn't like a situation like Andy Green where there was just like no success, and it's like, oh, he was a manager, but he didn't really do much. Like he made the playoffs, he had a playoff run. So I like it. I think that adding this, I mean, that was one of our biggest things when we like before the offseason started. I think that was our first thing we said. No matter who you have in terms of the players, you need to have a better coaching staff because that was something we felt like the Padres lacked a ton. Yes, they have holes in the lineup. Yes, they have an issue at first base where Hosmer's making a ton of money, but he's not producing where you'd want him to produce. But we talked about it. We said, look, if you not going and signing a guy like Jurickson Profar, and I use Jurickson Profar as an example because I think he's a solid player, but I think he gets paid a little bit much. He makes what, $27 million, I think, over 3 years. I think that's his deal. That's expensive. Is it an awful deal? Is it hurting you? No. But if you can take deals like that and instead go and get a better coaching staff to develop the younger players that you have, it helps your organization a lot more. And I think that's what we're seeing consistently with the Padres this offseason. That's why I've really liked the offseason. It's definitely not done yet, but we've seen them make some low-risk moves. Oh, they move Frazier for some prospects. Oh, they bring in Bob Melvin, Matt Williams, a lot of Ruben Niebla, guys that have had experience, guys that have had a lot of success around them. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped for what they've been doing. And like we said about the lockout, that's why I think it hurts a lot more too. Because it's like, oh, they did recognize we need better development, and now we're going to probably have to wait a little while to see it. But I do love the Matt Williams signing as well. What else we got, guys? What other questions we have? We'll probably hop off in here like 15. What are you gonna say?
I know another thing with the lockout is you can't sign players. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. We've seen it's been pretty well proven that in a player's first year with the team, the earlier that they sign with the team, the better they will do at producing during the regular season. And the later that they sign, it unfortunately their production goes down. We've seen that with Harper and Machado when they were holding out for their big contracts. They didn't sign until nearly spring training. And we saw them somewhat struggle in their first years. And the guys that didn't, that signed pretty early, they had more success. And it's just kind of like a proven thing. Now you guys are making them wait until probably late January, early February at the earliest. I mean, late January at the earliest, because we've seen these guys go back and forth for months in 2020. These guys can never agree on anything. So, you have Seiya Suzuki waiting to get a contract. You have to wait for all the major free agents to get a contract too before you can really start spring training. I mean, yeah, they're going to be contract negotiations all throughout the offseason, but until it's on pen and paper, what does that really mean?
Okay, question for you actually. Do you think it is less likely to trade Hosmer considering that you would have to bring in another first baseman late? Because the way I see it is like you have guys in Machado and Tatis that are absolutely rifling the ball to first base. There are a lot different fielders in most first baseman experience. You take a one hopper from Tatis, that thing is flying. Like he's throwing 95, 96 across the diamond. If you bring in a Josh Bell, a Matt Olson, they're going to have a very big adjustment period to playing with guys that throw that hard across the diamond. Do you think that makes it a little less likely that they move Hosmer? Because I don't know if it does, but I think there's a chance.
So, not necessarily, because like I said, like my biggest advocate here, move Will Myers back to first base. He has experience with the team. He's been around the guys. Just move him back to first. You don't necessarily have to bring in another first baseman. If you want Profar to get more reps, you can also throw him at first. We saw him actually be able to pick balls pretty well at first base. Myers is showing that he can do that. The one time he graded negatively as a defensive player was in 2017 when he was dealing with a bunch of elbow and bone spur injuries to his glove arm, which you can account it to that. You don't have to, but I'm going to because, that probably affected his fielding in some way, shape, or form. And then you have Profar. So you can plug these guys in there and be completely okay with it. And then you can go after, that Chris Bryant or that oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. The
Castellanos?
Castellanos, yes. Like the Reds outfielder. You can go after those guys and be more free with your budget, or you can sign, a couple mid-level guys just to plug in the holes until your minor league guys are ready. You can do more things with Eric Hosmer gone than being on the team.
Yeah. Profar was at first base during Musgrove's no-hitter. Jason brought that up. I don't think Bob Melvin will play Tatis at leadoff like Jace Tingler did. Good God, that would frustrate me every time you. This is a pretty funny one. Yeah, that was a little bit frustrating. I do think with the DH it's a little bit different, but it did feel like, I'm not gonna lie, it felt like when they had him leading off, their team would produce more offensively. Like him as that like spark plug to start the lineup and to start the games was huge. But I agree. Like you have a guy hitting a ton of bombs, you don't want him leading off. You really don't want him to. Don't ever say that name again. Yeah, I don't know. I think that if you have a DH and you have Trent Grisham hitting 9, I think you can bat Tatis leadoff. If you don't, and even if you do have a DH, I think you would prefer Tatis hitting 2. I think that's the best spot for him to hit. I think if you go 2, you have Tatis at 2, Cronenworth at 3, and then Manny at 4. That's probably ideal. That's probably exactly what you want. Maybe you move Cronenworth to 1, you put Manny at 3, and then you sign an Olsen or a Castellanos or whoever it is, and then they clean up. That also works really well. But I agree. Like it is tough. Let's see what else we got here. Whoever constructed the lineup card every night, it was it was bad. The lineups were terrible. We talked about that. They would put Tommy Pham 5th when the only spot he should have ever hit was 1st. If you looked at his splits, he was getting on base a ton, and he was the worst player at driving guys in. And they would put him consistently after Tatis, Cronenworth, and Machado. Explain to me how that makes sense. It made no. I mean, I've probably talked about that like every single time late in the year when we'd come on. So I'd be like, oh look, Tommy Pham was hitting 5th today. He left 8 guys on base. What do you know? Grounded into 2 double plays. Look at that. That was so frustrating. That was awful. But yeah, I don't know. Question for you. I saw this thing. And Castellanos was talking about how he improves his swing and whatnot. And we've talked about Chris Bryant. We've talked about Castellanos. Me, you, and Isaac have all said we would rather them go get Bryant over Castellanos because he's going to make a little bit more money. We think Chris Bryant brings a little bit more versatility. We just like Chris Bryant being there a little bit more. But what I've seen about Castellanos is that like he is huge on making adjustments. And some people were talking about it, and they called him the anti-Hosmer because he wants to change his swing and stuff. Does that make you feel any different? Or do you think that him being like a defensive liability is what ultimately pushes you away from wanting to go after him?
It's not even just that. It's just he's older than Bryant. He plays less positions than Bryant. Sure, he hits as many or more home runs. We've seen Chris Bryant make adjustments. We remember early in his career, after his MVP season, he did struggle a little bit, and then he came back to his normal form. Maybe he only hit 265 this year, but he still provided plenty of opportunities for the Giants to win through defense, through his offense. And 2, the only reason I like Chris Bryant a little bit more, he also played at UCSD. I mean, having that guy come back and be
USD.
that guy. USD, my bad. You played at USD. Having that guy come back to San Diego just would be good for San Diego. It's kind of like Joe Musgrove coming back. Having a guy that played in his college town, just kind of makes more sense than, okay, let's rifle off another huge contract to this guy who's a little bit older and had a career year. Just sounds like Eric Hosmer all over again. I know he was willing to make the adjustments, but it still scares me.
I do think that's a big thing, though, don't you? Like being like willing to go out there and say, yeah, I am consistently looking at how I can improve my swing every single day. It is totally the anti-Hosmer, because instead of Hosmer's like, check this out, Adam Frazier. This is how you ground out to second base. But yeah, I don't know. I do still think I'd rather see them go after Bryant. I mean, the other guys, and I think maybe we should do an episode on this. If the DH is implemented, is it a lock that the Padres go and sign Nelson Cruz? I think it is a lock. I think there is not a shot that he is not in a Padres uniform if that is the case. And if you go and add like 2 bats like that, a Castellanos, a Bryant, a Josh Bell, and Nelson Cruz, dude, your lineup is so much better than last year. Like that is so, like strides better, especially if you don't have Hosmer and Frazier in the lineup. And I know that I think that like Frazier might have a better year on the Mariners next year than he was in San Diego. I definitely think that's the case, but I just don't think it was that great of a fit. I don't know. What do you think? You think like just doing those 2 things would be enough to like push the lineup over the top?
Yeah, I still think if you sign Cruz, you get rid of Hosmer, and you either move Myers, you put Bryant at first base. You still have a somewhat problem in the outfield being like, okay, one guy, maybe 2 guys, depending on how Grish does, is not going to produce. You're gonna have that hole in your lineup still, or it's just gonna be one where it's very inconsistent. I mean, we saw Profar in the beginning of the year, he was very cold. Towards the end of the season, he did very good. Same thing with 2020. He was very cold in the first half, and then the second half, he picked it up. So it's going to be one of those things where, yeah, you get rid of these guys, you probably upgrade on defense, but you're still going to have a little bit of a hole in your lineup somewhere. There's always going to be that one hole that's pretty glaring. And in the Padres right now, it's both left, right, somewhat, depending on how Myers plays. We saw that last year was kind of a weird year for him. It was away from his career norms. And then first base. And as of right now, we have Profar to fill in first base or Ha-Seong Kim. Both Ha-Seong Kim has more power, but doesn't hit as much for average and doesn't walk as much. Profar hits for more average and walks more, but doesn't hit for power. So it's like a flip of the coin there, and then you still have left field to fill in, and then possibly a DH role.
What about this one? If we dump Myers and Haas, also I'll say I think you only need to dump one of them. Should we go after Schwarber? Actually, I don't even think you don't even really need to dump any of them, to be honest, because Schwarber's expected deal, and this is on Spot Track, is 3 years, 38. So it's about $13 million a year over 3 seasons. You're not breaking the bank to go get him. But what do you think about Schwarber? Kind of a little bit more of a low cost option. Don't have to go and he's also a guy I think where if you're comparing him to Castellanos, or you're talking about him in the discussion with Castellanos and Chris Bryant, he is coming off of a career year. However, you look at his last, check this out. You look at his last 4 seasons. I got him pulled up right here. Here's his WAR. 2021, he had 3.1. 2020, only 0.1, but 2020. 2019, 2.3. 2018, 2.1. So he's producing a solid WAR, not anything insane. But do you think would you like them to potentially go after Kyle Schwarber?
Yeah, I feel like if you can't get Nelson Cruz, Schwarber's the next best thing. He can play the left field, he can play right field, and he plugs into a really, really good lefty DH. And that's kind of what the Padres were lacking last year, was a lefty power bat. You have 2 guys on the left side of the infield that can hit 30 to 40 bombs a year. On the left side, or just a lefty bat, you had Grisham to hit, he had his power surges, but nothing consistent. Hosmer, never consistent in home runs. And then you had Profar, who, he doesn't really hit home runs all that well. Having a lefty major bat and, a short and right field porch at Petco Park, since they brought in the walls, I feel like Schwarber would have another career year.
I like that. I think you're right there. Also, you notice have you ever thought about how far back that wall used to be? Because it is ridiculous, dude. It's like 20, 30 feet, right?
Yeah.
It's that far. I don't know how guys used to hit it out. They most of the home runs over there rarely go over that wall. If you were lefty, you were completely screwed unless you hit it right down the foul pole. It was brutal. I was thinking about that. Whenever I still to this day, whenever I look at Petco, I'm like, man, that they moved it in so much. I think that's so good. If you're a hitter, if you're a lefty and you're thinking about signing in San Diego, you're like, absolutely not. But yeah, I like the idea of adding a lefty. And I think in terms of, because you did, let's see, it was Nicholas. Nicholas said if you dump Myers and Haas, I think that makes a lot more sense if you dump Haas because you're going to have to try to replace that like left-handed power, or I guess not really replace the power, but replace the lefty bat. And you've already lost one, so I do think there's a good chance. Have a couple other questions here. Okay, let's see. Hall of Fame question from Juan. We'll get to that in just a second. Profar is a bench piece, a good bench piece. That's it. I think we all feel the same way with that. I think we feel the same way with Kim going into next year. Could he potentially, have a surge, have a lot of improvement, and become a starting level player? Yes, but right now he's a bench piece. As our lineup stands right now, if we're not able to get rid of anybody, hopefully we can get the cheapest of the outfield free agents. Suzuki might be a gamble we'll have to take. I like the idea of adding Suzuki. Left-handed powerhouse. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I do think I would like to gamble on Suzuki, and the big reason I would like to gamble on Suzuki is because he is a amazing defensive player, and I think that's a really big thing. If you have Grisham and Suzuki in the outfield, you have two like Gold Glove caliber players. And Grisham did take a step back this last year, but he was still a very good defensive center fielder. So I don't know. I like that. But what about this Hall of Fame question? Let me pull it up here. Here it is. Do any of either Bonds, Clemens, Big Poppy, or A-Rod get elected into the Hall of Fame this year?
I think Bonds, just because it's his last year, and they broke the taboo that if you took PEDs, you're not going to get into the Hall of Fame. They already broke that, so I think Bonds makes it. Maybe Clemens and Big Poppy. I'm not the biggest fan of A-Rod. He probably won't make it in this year. He'll probably make it in his second or third year, though. Just not this year.
Was that Poppy or A-Rod?
A-Rod. I think Poppy might make it in this year just because of his historic career in the Red Sox.
So does Clemens not make it in ever?
No, I think Clemens either. I don't know if this is his last year. I know this is Bonds' last year that he's eligible.
I would expect Bonds to make it.
So I expect Bonds to make it. Clemens might have to wait until his last year of eligibility because I know some people are high on him, some people aren't. I know Big Poppy's had a historic career in the Red Sox community. He has a ton of poster moments that I can think of off the top of my head.
Dude, that playoff grand slam is literally one of the coolest things you could ever watch.
Yeah, so I think he might make it in his first year. If not, he's going to be like A-Rod. It's either going to be a second or third year for him.
Yeah, I think for who I expect, I expect Bonds to make it. I get that he had PEDs, but you can make the argument that he's one of the greatest, that he is the greatest hitter ever. Dude was getting on base 65% of the time in his steroid years, but it's not like there's a bunch of other players that weren't using steroids. It's not like some of the pitchers that he was going against weren't using steroids either. So it is tough. It is a really tough spot. It's also an area where me and you didn't grow up watching that era, so it is a little bit tougher for us, I think, to make the call on an A-Rod or a Bonds or a Clint, some of these guys. But I do think Bonds ultimately will make it, and it being his last year, I'd expect that. I don't know would Big Poppy be a first ballot if he got in this year, right?
Yeah, him and A-Rod would be first ballot, which if A-Rod makes it in his first year, I think that's a disgrace to baseball. That's my opinion. But
so do you think he's second or third?
Yeah. I just don't like A-Rod. I don't like him as a person. He got caught his first time and then he lied about being on it his second time. And, that just rubbed me the wrong way. If you're doing something, man, just be honest about it. Don't, backtrack
like Ryan Braun.
every time you get caught.
Remember Ryan Braun?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Milwaukee. It was an accident. He gets caught like 4 times with it. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really wonder. I think all of these guys will get in. I think the least likely one to get in is probably Clemens. But I don't think Big Poppy or A-Rod get in this year. I think Poppy will probably be second year, even though I'd like to see him get in first year. I mean, growing up, even though I wasn't a Red Sox fan, I still loved watching Big Poppy. He's definitely one of the faces of baseball, one of the coolest guys. I like Big Poppy a lot more than I do A-Rod as well. But I don't know. I wonder if they all get in. Yeah, this is I think the big thing too. Bonds' numbers prior to steroids were Hall of Fame worthy, and that's the thing. And I think that's why he's going to get in. It would be pretty weird if Barry Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame when we're talking about baseball. That's it. That's strange to me. What else? Let's see. All right, yeah, I think a lot of people are just talking about that question. I think it's a great question. Who sent that out again? Juan. Great question, Juan. Really appreciate that one. That was a fun one. So I think we're going to start watching football here in a second. If you guys were not here on the beginning, next weekend we're going to be doing a jersey giveaway. Not exactly sure how it's going to go, but you will need to be in the live stream. We'll do it at like 9:30 next Sunday morning. So probably a Joe Musgrove jersey. That's what I'm thinking. Not 100% sure on that, but some type of Padres jersey giveaway. So all of you people that come every week, we'll find a way to make sure that you all are all able to enter in, and that's exciting. We're pretty stoked to be giving that out. So 26 Sunday before football starts, probably around 9:30 is when we'll do it. But you will have to be in the live stream. So letting you guys know now, and we'll bring this up throughout the week too. So we'll make sure everyone's all dialed in on that. But we're excited to be giving a jersey away. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Chase, anything you want to add before we take off?
No. Other than, you know what? I hope Big Papi gets in this year.
I feel that. I hope he gets in as well. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Fun question. We're gonna be talking a little bit more about some broad baseball stuff. Doing a little bit less Padres content just because there's not that much news. Not that we're not going to talk about the Padres, but more broad MLB, talking about the NFL a little bit. But we're pumped to be doing that stuff. Still going to be a Padres channel mainly, but just for a couple weeks with the lockout, we'll probably do some other stuff, which will be fun to do. But thank you all for listening, and hopefully you are here next week for the giveaway. And excited to do that. Hopefully it's a Musgrove jersey because I feel like I feel like Java Joe's the jersey to own right now outside of like Fernando and Manny. But yeah, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back talking to you guys probably tomorrow, I think, and then next Sunday another live stream. So talk to you guys soon, and hopefully the Niners win and clinch the playoffs, not officially, but pretty much. So talk to you guys later.